All right, we're going to talk about simplifying exponential expressions in this video. So we're going to do a few things, some with fractional exponents and some negative exponents. So let's try to get a good mix of things going that we're seeing on the Chapter 3 test, but also just for other more practice. So here's our first example. Say 16x to the 8th, and all of that to the 5/4 power. Okay, so we have a fractional exponent going on in this problem, which just means it's a fraction and it's an exponent. So I like to think about this 5/4. I'm going to split it in half and basically just separate the top and the bottom. So I'm going to change this into 16x to the 8th, and I'm just going to separate the 5. I could write it as 5/1 times 1/4. That means the same thing as 5/4, right? So then from there, I know this 1/4 is also the same as the 4th root. So if I have a 1/2 exponent, that really means the square root. If I have a 1/3 exponent, it means the cubed root. If I have a 1/4 exponent, it means the 4th root, and so on like that. So this number on the bottom becomes the number with the square root. You could put a 2 right here, but normally we don't do that for square roots. It's just kind of understood or expected that it's there. So I'm going to rewrite this one more time. I should have written that in purple or something else, but I'm going to rewrite this as the 4th root of this stuff inside the parentheses, 16x to the 8th, and then all of that to the 5th power. So basically I just flip-flop the order of these exponents, and instead of writing this stuff to the 1/4, I wrote the 4th root of this stuff because that means the same as the 4th exponent, or the 1/4 as the exponent. It means the same as the 4th root. So now we're going to work with this piece right here. Okay, so I'm going to copy that down here a little bit more. So 4th root of 16x to the 8th. And I'm going to put my 5 on the outside of all of that. Technically it could be on the inside of the things, but I think it's easier just to put it on the outside and deal with that later. So we're going to deal with the inside first. So the 4th root of 16, so one number times itself 4 times gets me to 16. That number is going to be a 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 again is 8, times 2 again is 16. So that's what where that comes from, this 2 right here. And then the exponent, x to the 8th, I'm going to split it into 4 equal groups. This is how many groups I'm going to split the exponent into. Okay, because they need to add up to 8. So I'm not just going to do 8 divided by 4, but how many things I want to split up into that. So in this case, that works out. So x squared. Okay, so if I have x squared and times another x squared times another x squared times another x squared, so 4 groups of them. Okay, so that is actually what I'm going to do. Sorry, I can just take the 8 divided by 4, but I'm not going to take 16 divided by 4 because that's not what the 4th root means. But I split it up into 4 groups because of this little 4 right here, and each group contains an x squared because I would add all those exponents together to get an 8. Okay, so that's why we have an x squared here. I've split the 8 into 4 equal groups, and each one would have a squared. And then I still have all of that to the 5th power, right? I still have that little 5 on the outside. So now I'm just going to take each of these things. This is kind of the exponent rules here. So if you still need help on that, and watch the other video or do the other practice problems that are going to come later, actually. Sorry, I'm getting all mixed up with myself because I'm trying to do a bunch of these at a time. So this is later in this video and on this worksheet. So I have 2, and I'm going to multiply, or I'm sorry, I'm going to have 2 to the 5th power. But then I'm going to multiply these exponents together, so x to the 2 times 5 up here. Okay? I'm not going to multiply 2 times 5 because that doesn't mean 2 to the 5th power. This means 2 times itself 5 times, so that's going to really be 32. And then I multiply these exponents. I have a power times another power. So that means I'm going to multiply those, so 2 times 5 will be x to the 10th power. How you learned it, or how we taught in Algebra 1, is you can write this stuff on the inside 5 times. 2x squared times 2x squared. Okay, so if you don't know what to do, that's something to start with. But we're going to try to make it a little easier for you. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. The big 2 is the coefficient, that's how I get the 32. And I add up all my exponents, and I get a total of 10 total. So here is really my first solution. That's the simplified version of this 16x to the 8th to the 5/4 power. So I'm going to show you another one with an exponent that is a fraction. Okay, let's maybe do that. Start doing that in purple. Okay, so I have 9x to the 4, y to the negative 2, and all of this is to the negative 1/2 power. So let's maybe rewrite this into a fraction actually. It might be a little bit easier. So I'm going to rewrite that as 9x to the 4th, y to the negative 2, times negative 3/2. That means the same as negative 1.5. Okay, so just like in this previous example, I'm going to give this negative 3/2 exponent to all of these numbers here. I'm not going to worry about this negative until the very end. So I'm going to rewrite it as 9 to the 4th. Sorry. That 9 is just by itself. So 9 to the negative 3/2 power, and we'll deal with that later. So then I have x to the 4th, and I'm going to multiply it by this number, negative 3 over 2. And I have y to the negative 2 times also negative 3 over 2. Okay, so I'm going to focus on the exponents of the variables first, and then come back to this 9 to the negative 3/2. So if I just multiply these numbers together, this is like 4 over 1 technically, so I can simplify this. That 4 and the 2 can reduce. If I divide each of those by 2, now that's a 2, that's a 1. So I have 2 times negative 3, so it's really x to the negative 6. That's what that turned into. So over here, again, I have this divided by 1, and my 2's are going to cancel out with each other, and also the negative times the negative will result in a positive number, and it's going to be a positive 3. So y to the positive 3 is my simplified version of that variable. Now let's go back to the 9 to the negative 3/2 part. So I'm going to separate the 3 and the 2 again, just like before. So I have negative 3 over 1 times 1/2 if I split those apart. Now I know the 1/2 exponent also means, these are exponents, it's kind of hard to tell that. Maybe try to write them a little smaller. Okay, this 1/2 means the same as the square root, so I'm going to do that first. I can switch the order that I perform these operations in. So I'm going to do the square root of 9, and then I'll take that answer to the negative 3 power. Okay, these are part of our answer so far. We're going to come back to that at the very end. So the square root of 9 is really 3. I have that to the negative 3 power. Well, the negative exponent, to get rid of that, I'm just going to end up putting that on the denominator of a fraction. So let's put everything we have together so far. I have this is in my answer, this is in my answer, and that's in my answer. So let's put it all together here. So I have 3 to the negative 3. I'm going to put that value on the bottom of a fraction to get rid of the negative exponent. So I have 3 to the positive 3 on the bottom, which is really going to be 27. Okay? So that came from 3 to the positive 3. I moved it to the bottom to make this exponent not negative, because we don't really want negatives in our answer. But I know the value of 3 to the 3rd is just 27. Okay? Over here we got x to the negative 6. Again, I don't want a negative exponent, so I'm going to put that on the bottom and make it a positive 6. This y to the 3rd is already positive, so I'm going to put that on the top of my fraction. So here's the simplified version of this 9x to the 4th y to the negative 2, all to the negative 1.5 power. So I know for sure on the worksheet there's an exponent that's negative 1.5, or at least it's 1.5 if it's not negative. So split it in half if you're more comfortable with that. Make it into a fraction first, separate the fraction to get those numbers there. So we're going to pause here and look at another type of exponent on another video. So check back with that.